Hello crafty viewers! For today's project we are going to work on this Thanksgiving place card that allows you to write notes and share gratitude for each other at Thanksgiving. Since a lot of people will be spending Thanksgiving apart from some of their relatives that they normally celebrate with, I thought it would be really nice to be able to make the most of the holiday that you have with each other and find a way to show your family members how much you appreciate them. So sit back and watch how I put this together. So I'm going to show you how to make one of the place cards for today's project, and there are materials out on the website that will show you how to make 4 at a time, since this is designed to be place cards for people that are joining together for Thanksgiving dinner, and you probably will need more than just one. So check the show notes down below and I will have a link to the website with more explanations there. So let's get started. For the first card, place card, I have a piece of early espresso cardstock, and it is cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. I also have a piece of this beautiful pumpkin paper that is part of the Gilded Autumn paper collection that is in the Stampin' Up! Mini catalog for this fall. And I really was kind of struggling with how I was going to use this when I saw the paper. It's beautiful, but I wasn't quite sure what to use it on, and this project is just the perfect place to use it. So if you have some of this pretty paper and are wondering what to do with it, this is your project. It does come with this speckled crumb cake background, which is kind of cool, but very versatile paper. But who doesn't want to use all this beautiful foil? So this was cut to 4 by 3 5/8 inches. And make sure when you have a piece of paper that has a pattern on it, for this particular project, you want the 4-inch side to be, it's tall, so 4 inches tall by 3 5/8 wide, so that you know which direction your pattern's going in. Let's get started on the card. Now, in the materials that I have the link for on the website, there are 3 different ways that you can make the impossible base for this card. The first way that you can make it is how I'm going to show you with your paper trimmer. The second way is that you can actually just mark it out and cut it with scissors. I do give some dimensions on the handout that show you where the cut lines are, so you can cut it yourself just with plain scissors. And in the handout on the website, there are also files that you can print. So if you're going to make multiples of these, there's a whole page that shows exactly where all the cut lines are. All you have to do is put your colored cardstock in your printer and print the lines on the card, and then you can cut that out fairly easily, either with a paper trimmer or with scissors. The last way is for customers of mine who belong to the Crafty Friends Club. And in the Crafty Friends Club vault for our premium members, I actually have SVG files that you can download, and you can use that in a Brother Scan and Cut, and a Cameo Silhouette Cameo, or in your Cricut machine. So there are SVG files out there in the premium section of the Crafty Friends Club vault. Be on the lookout there. Now, we're not actually going to use any stamping for any sentiments, but this card does have a bridge that you can write the person's name on for their place card. And let's punch those out real quick before we cut the other card base. Now, if you watched my video on all of the Feels Like Frost cards I made, you know that I made very good use of this lovely Labels Pick-a-Punch. And it cuts 2 different patterns, depending on which side you use. And for this, we're actually going to use, I really like the curvy one. So this is a little piece of card cut to 2 3/4 by 3/4 of an inch. And I'm just going to slide that into this middle channel and punch out both ends. Now I do have a piece of early espresso, and this is cut to 3 by 1 inch, and that will give us an 1/8 of an inch reveal all around. Okay, now that we have both of those pieces cut out, I'm just going to glue them together and we'll set those aside. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to cut the card base here. And to cut the card base, we're just going to make 3 simple cuts and 1 score. So the first cut that I'm going to make is I'm going to line this up at 1 3/8 of an inch. And I'm going to cut from the bottom up to 2 1/8 inch. I'm also going to cut on this side, also at 1 3/8 of an inch. And on this side, I'm also going to cut that up to 2 1/8. Now, that's these sides. On this side, I'm going to cut it at 2 3/4 of an inch. And that also is going to be cut all the way to 2 1/8 of an inch. Now the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to put this in at 2 1/8 of an inch. And we are going to score in between the 2 cuts. So check it out and make sure that your cut lines are all meeting along that score mark, because that's important to be able to flip it. Now, this is where the magic comes in. All you do is you just take this one side and flip and fold. Now, if it's not coming out even, that's where you know you need to maybe use your snips and cut it just a little bit. But this looks like it's coming out fairly level. And just fold this back and fold it forth. And there is the start of your impossible card. I'm going to set that aside because we are going to work on the paper, the pumpkin paper next. I have paper pumpkin on the mind because mine finally got here. So on this, again, there is a download on my website. I'll put the link down for the blog post in the show notes below. And this has all of the different dimensions and where you cut. And actually the files in there are fairly self-explanatory. Again, if you wanted to use the handout and print it out, you could print it out on this side, use your scissors to do the cutting. Now I didn't because I'm only making one of these cards, but if I was going to make 4, the printout on the website is actually sized to cut it out off of a printed 8.5 by 11 sheet of this cardstock. So let's get started on here. So the very first cut that I'm going to, or cut the slice I'm going to make, is I'm going to put this at 1 1/8 of an inch. And I am going to bring it up to 2 1/8. Now the one thing that I noticed is, pro tip, this has almost 1/8 of an inch of play in it. And since I know that this is cut to 4 inches, I like to make sure that I push it all the way down so that there's 0 here and 4 here to get accurate cuts, especially when you're cutting something like this, that it would be really obvious that the cuts are off. So I want to take this from the blade from 4, and I want to go all the way to 1 7/8, because that will give me 2 1/8 of a slice. And again, this is at 1 1/8 in. So from 4 to 1 7/8. On this side, we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to go down from the top, and we're going to go from 1 1/8 here all the way down to 2 1/8 of an inch. And you'll see that that gives us 2 cuts like this, and 2 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to just slice between those 2 lines. So I start in the middle, and then I can just feel where the resistance stops. And I'm going to push it over to here to 1 1/8. And that separates it apart, but there's still one more trim I need to do, so that this little leg here is at 2 1/8. And that will take out this little tiny strip out of the middle. It's about 1/4 inch wide. So these are our 2 decorative pieces. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to adhere them down to our card base. And again, before you adhere it, make sure that your pumpkins are facing in the right direction. And this gives us a 1/8 inch reveal all around. Now, if I had any difference between the sizes of this, I just want to make sure that I line up this so that this reveal over here is the same, because you're not going to notice it along the back, because there's going to be too much pretty stuff in the way. Okay, we can adhere our name tag down, and this, since this is for a place card, you would write your person's name for where they're going to be, whoever the names are, and then that way you put this on their plate for where they're going to be sitting. So we're just going to adhere that down with a dimensional on either side. If you want, you could make this a little bit longer, 3 1/2 even. I did 3 2 3/4, but you can even make it a little bit wider if you want. That, with the dimensionals, just straddles either side. Okay, so for the back, I'm just going to use another one of these, and I'm just going to add a little bit of glue on each side to span the gap. You don't want to put glue in the middle because you don't want that to be where there's no paper. Okay, there we go. So now let's work on the pretty stuff. The next thing that we're going to do is we are going to stamp, color, and cut 3 pieces out of the Autumn Goodness set. I'm going to use the wheat, the wheelbarrow, and the pumpkin thing here. So let's get started on that. In my stamp positioning tool, I have positioned the stamps so that they fit onto a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch paper. And we're going to put them down. And I have them positioned so that when I die cut them, I can die cut all 4 at once, and they're situated far enough apart that that will allow me to die cut all at once. I am using some soft suede ink, and we're going to ink this up really good. And the reason why I'm using my stamp positioning tool is because with the photopolymer stamps, I just want to make sure that I get a really good image stamped. And this allows me to stamp it multiple times if I need to, especially when you have new photopolymer stamps. There we go. Perfect. Now, I like the soft suede ink because it's less harsh than if you were to use a black ink, and it really ties in very nice with the fall theme. So the very first thing let's color is the wheelbarrow and the wheel. And this is easy. I mean, the stamp has all of the highlighting in it. I'm not going to do any kind of special coloring with this. I'm just going to lay down a bunch of color. Okay, now that our coloring is done, let's cut these out. I'm just going to use a little bit of purple tape to make sure that these get stuck down in the right spot and don't move around. And I'm going to run these through the die cutting machine. I'll be right back. Okay, here we have our pieces. And the wheel, no matter how many times I've tried to cut this out, just hasn't come out right. So I'm actually going to trim this down with some scissors just to make it look a little bit better. This is the 3rd time I've done this, and it has not turned out well any of the times. Thankfully, it's just a circle, so it's quick and easy to cut. I'm going to take a little drop of that glue right in the middle of the hub and glue that down. All right, now we're going to put this back onto our card base. And this card, place cards are not designed to go into an envelope, because once you add our cart plus our pumpkin, it is going to go way off the top edge. So this is something that you can certainly fold up and store at home, but it wasn't designed to go into a regular size envelope, although I'm sure you could probably make a custom size envelope. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make this dimensional, and I'm going to use some Stampin' Dimensionals to hold this down. And then we can tuck the pumpkin in behind it. I'm also going to have it slightly go off the edge, so I'm not going to put dimensionals all the way over to the edge. In the background, we can add our stalk of wheat. Again, making sure that you don't glue all the way to the top, because it's going to go off the top edge of the card. So and now we can glue in our pumpkin, and the glue is only going to go along the bottom edge of the pumpkin. Because these are going to tuck in here behind our dimensional. There we go. Now there's one last special side that we're going to work on next, and that is the surprise pocket on the back. Okay, so for the back pocket, I have a piece of the pumpkin paper, and that is cut to 3.5 inches wide by 2 inches tall. And I am going to score at 1/2 inch on 3 of the sides, and that will form my pocket. Now again, if you have the download off of the website, you can actually get all of the pieces for 4 cards onto a piece of 8.5 by 11 designer series paper. And if you print on the back, it will give you all of the cut and score lines. Score lines are the dotted lines, the cut lines are the solid lines. Now for this pocket, I am going to trim. I have the 1/2 inch here, 1/2 and 1/2. I'm just going to cut a little bit from this side and a little bit from that side. Just a tiny little wedge out here to where the 2 lines, score lines cross. Tiny little wedge out here. Wedge from the top, wedge from the top on that side, so that when I fold it down, you won't see these back pieces when it's folded. Now, when I create pockets, I always put the bottom fold to the outside of the side folds, so that when you stick something in, it has a better chance of not catching on this bottom edge. So we're going to use a little bit of glue here, and we're going to just glue down the 2 sides. The bottom, and this is going to go on the back of our card. Right here Now, this little pocket is where you tuck the notes that you're writing to each other to express your gratitude. So before you have dinner, each family member will take a minute to write down something that they're thankful for each other, and each person fills one out for each member in the family, and then you tuck it in the back here. And when it's time to sit down, everybody sits down and enjoys what they have, the little notes that they have shared for each other. I hope you enjoyed this project today. If you did and you want to give me a like, I sure would appreciate it. If you want to purchase any of the products that I used in today's project, feel free to click on the link below, and I have a link for my online store in the show notes below. And you can, again, like I mentioned, you can find the instructions and the forms for how to cut and create this project. Hope you have a fabulous day. Bye-bye.